Hello, my name is Sarah Flint, and I am the Creation Care Fellow at St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Fernandina Beach, Florida. This video is the first in a series of 4 videos on how we can do a better job taking care of God's beautiful creation during all of the festivities from Thanksgiving through New Year's Eve. And this particular video is about the aspect of entertaining over the holidays. What's that you're asking? Why is this important during the holiday season? Well, I am so glad that you asked. At this time of year, we Americans really take excess to a whole new level. We buy too much, we eat too much, and we definitely waste too much. As I share tips with you, I also have some important statistics to share, starting with this. Household waste increases more than 25% during the weeks between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, contributing to an extra 1 million tons of trash entering landfills every week. And when you add all of this up, it adds up to about 5.5 million tons over the holiday season. As you're planning your meal, please consider sustainability of your main course. Beef is by far the least sustainable choice, followed by poultry or pork, then fish, and then finally vegetarian or vegan options. So if it won't cause a family meltdown, please consider if your main course might be able to be vegetarian or pescatarian. If you do go with fish, I do urge you to consider that overfishing has also become a problem on our planet. A lot of the fishing grounds have reached or exceeded what is sustainable for them. And in addition, crab traps and lobster pots, or lobster pots and crab traps, however you want to say it, often have a line that goes from the trap on the ocean floor up to the surface of the ocean. And that is a huge hazard for the highly endangered North Atlantic right whales that often get entangled in these lines, and it leads to the death of a lot of whales. So be aware of that. The reason beef is so bad, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here, is it takes a tremendous amount of resources to produce just 1 pound of feedlot beef. It takes 2,500 gallons of water, 12 pounds of grain, 35 pounds of topsoil, and the energy equivalent of a gallon of gas just to produce that 1 pound of beef. And going on about the resources required, 70% of US grain production is fed to livestock, and roughly 20% of all of our currently threatened and endangered species in the United States are harmed by livestock grazing. Animal agriculture is a chief contributor to water pollution, and America's farm animals produce 10 times the waste of our human population, which produces enough waste of its own. So that's pretty bad. And finally, thinking globally, 1/3 of the world's fish catch is fed directly to livestock, and 5 million acres of rainforest are taken down every year in South and Central America alone to create cattle pasture. And not for nothing, but cows burp a lot. And when they do that, they produce methane, which pound for pound is a much worse greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So your beef is going to be your least sustainable choice. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a minute and talk a little bit about transportation of food. It's important to realize that food typically travels 1,500 miles from the farm to your plate. So it's really great if you can buy locally produced food and food that is in season, so it's not being brought in from faraway places. Be aware of the packaging, though. Organic produce is definitely your best choice, but sometimes it's wrapped in plastic, and then you really have to weigh the pros and cons. And a note about organic is that it's not just for our personal health, which it does really make a difference to eat food that's not laden in chemicals, but it's also important for the health of the soil and the microorganisms in the soil. And it's important for the farm workers. This is a serious justice issue that often field workers get spray carried in the wind. of the pesticides being sprayed, and they also through their skin are exposed to these pesticides, and it's just not good for them. So it is a justice issue. But again, you have to weigh, look up Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 and think about whether organic is your best option if it is in a plastic package, which is also an unsustainable choice. Another quick note, when you're shopping for your event, don't forget those reusable bags. And I try to just leave them in my car all the time. And then that way, if I'm in the store and I realize I've left them in my car, I just park my buggy for a minute and run back out to the car and get them. And doing that a couple times, and you don't leave them in your car very often after that. Moving on to setting your table, I really urge you to use reusable glassware and flatware and dishware and table coverings and napkins. If you don't use reusable, consider if you can use paper because it is renewable and it's usually compostable. And it does preserve land actually from being developed when there are tree farms for paper production. Be very wary of items labeled as compostable because it's often compostable only in a commercial composter, so it will not degrade in your backyard compost system. And if you live in Nassau County, Florida, we do not have commercial composting. And finally, regarding setting your table, you may be making a beautiful centerpiece or planning to buy one. And I urge you to use natural items in your centerpiece and even look in your own yard, in your garden. You may have everything you need to produce something that's really beautiful and sustainable. As people are arriving for your event before the meal, make sure that you have clearly marked bins for what's going to the landfill versus what you're recycling. And if you're composting, provide some instruction for people. And you may be serving drinks as people are arriving at your event. And I really urge you not to buy single serving bottles of drinks, especially plastic bottles. I could really go off on how awful I think plastic is. But for single serve beverages, opt for glass. And for beverages served in cups, opt for real glassware instead of those plastic solo cups. And I know sometimes we opt for plastic thinking, well, I'll just recycle it after. But an important, not so fun fact is that all of the plastic that has been manufactured, only 5% of that has been recycled. And if you really want to be mortified, go ahead and Google the Great Pacific Garbage Patch because that illustrates how often plastic ends up in our oceans. If it's not in our oceans, it's in our landfills. And it's just not sustainable for reasons beyond it being a fossil fuel product. I could do a whole video just on plastic and how I feel about plastic. But moving on, you might be burning some candles for your event, and they do smell really nice, but some people are very sensitive to them. They do create air pollution. So other options are baking something that smells really good, like bread or cookies, or maybe on your stovetop, cook up some cinnamon and clove and oranges, and it just smells great. Or you can buy those cinnamon brooms, and if it starts to fade away, just get a little bottle of cinnamon essential oil and you can recharge your broom just like that. Another fun thing that's available in modern times are reusable paper towels. So in your bathroom, you might supply these for drying people's hands. And make sure you have a bin though, where they can throw the towels and then you have them in one place for laundering them and they don't end up in the trash. You can also make these available in your kitchen, really anywhere where people would be looking for a paper towel. These are really cute and a really great item. And moving on to actually preparing your food, I really would like to urge you not to overdo food preparation. Go ahead and share my screen again because this is really important to understand about how much food we waste. Americans waste 30 to 40% of our food supply annually. And this terrible statistic is even worse over the holidays. It increases by 25%. So if food waste wasn't bad enough directly, there's also this terrible ripple effect of wasted energy when you account for resources for growing food and processing it and transporting it and its impact on agricultural land and blue water. Blue water is surface water and aquifer water. and use of fertilizers, use of energy. So throwing all this food away is really a terrible thing for us to be doing. And another kind of horrifying statistic, in 2022 in the United States, an estimated 305 million pounds of food, which is a $400 million value. Think of what you could buy for $400 million, was wasted from Thanksgiving meals alone, just Thanksgiving meals. The greenhouse gas emissions from just producing that much food is equivalent to driving 169,000 cars for a year. So again, note, that's just food production. That has nothing to do with food rotting in the landfill and releasing methane as it rots. EPA data shows that food waste is the single most common material landfilled and incinerated in the United States, comprising 24 and 22% of landfilled and combusted municipal solid waste, respectively. Food rotting in landfills, as I mentioned before, it releases methane, and methane is 80 times worse than carbon dioxide pound for pound as a greenhouse gas. And fun fact, the number one item of food that is thrown away most often is bread. So as you're planning your menu, consider, do you really need bread at all? Or if you are going to serve bread, really make sure that you don't buy too much of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a moment again here and mention that as you're preparing your food, try to plan very carefully the use of your oven and cook as many things together as you possibly can to minimize energy use. And also use the light that comes with your oven and look through the window to check on how food is cooking as much as you possibly can, rather than opening the door and letting all of that warmth out of your oven. And as you're putting things on the stove top, also make sure you size your pots and pans to the stove burners for maximum cooking efficiency. As your meal is ending and you're cleaning things up, most of us have a pretty good dishwasher these days. Don't pre-wash everything before you put it in the dishwasher. Just simply scrape it into whatever waste bucket you're using. If you know somebody who has a farm with pigs or goats, it's so great if you can provide scraps for the animals. Or if you have a dog, if you've got giblets left from a poultry meal, you can cook those up as a special treat for your dog. Make sure you compost appropriately your own food waste. That would require a whole separate video of how to compost, but go ahead and do a little research and think about composting if you are able to do that. And don't forget that you can compost paper, like your napkins and your paper towels, if you have any of that left from your meal, if you've not used your cloth napkins. As you're putting away your leftovers, we're tempted to just shove it all in the refrigerator, but really consider if something should be frozen if you can't eat them quickly enough before they're going to end up going to waste. Also, feel free to share your leftovers with your guests. They would love to have some of these items. But when you're doing that, consider if you can use something other than a Ziploc bag. They're kind of the worst. You can repurpose glass jars, or go ahead and buy mason jars. They come in a wonderful half-gallon size now. They don't cost very much, and they're a really great product. Now, I've shared a lot of information in a short time with you, but and even with how much I've shared, I'm sure that I've forgotten a few things that I should have said. But I do just want to wish you the happiest of holidays and urge you to just do what you can. Everybody can't do every single thing that is ideal, but if we all do a little bit, it really does matter. And as we raise our own consciousness of these issues and spark some conversations with our guests, all that really is important, and it really does help bring attention to the powers that be, that we are interested in being a greener society and really doing what we need to do to help to turn the climate crisis around. So with that, enjoy your holiday season and look for the videos on decorating and gift giving and traveling. Peace be with you.